Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. Good afternoon, everybody else. Hope everybody's doing okay. I know we have some of our colleagues from the East Coast who are signed on. I hope all of you are doing okay and managing well. I hope your families are safe and doing well. I have to tell you, we're in a little bit of a bubble here on the West Coast, especially in the Bay Area. The shelter in place has made a huge difference here, and we're really definitely past the peak out here, and our peak was pretty much a speed bump here. So I just can't imagine what some of you are all been putting up with the last 4 to 6 weeks. So I hope everybody's doing all right and managing to cope with this situation. And hopefully we'll have better days ahead soon for everybody. Bria, when we're all done, are we gonna be able to open it up for questions and stuff?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So today's agenda, it's not super long, and so I think we'll have plenty of time if people just want to talk about stuff and ask other questions. So we should have plenty of time for discussion at the end of this. We're just going to talk a little bit about the annual meeting. Before we get started on that, the plan now is that we're going to have our meeting in Hawaii. That's the working assumption. Obviously, that's prone to change and whatever else happens over the next few months as far as travel, but right now we're working on the assumption that we'll have at least some in-person component. I think we're definitely going to have to offer at a minimum a hybrid meetings so that people who can't travel could participate virtually, but all that's sort of up in the air right now, and we're just going to have to wait and see how events unfold over the next 1 to 2 to 3 months. But we don't have a ton of time to make this decision, but we're actively looking at all the different possibilities. So some of you hopefully have already heard, you may be on the program, so we're just going to run through a little bit about what are the requirements. And oops, let's see. All right, oops, yeah, hold on, my computer's got a little lag here. I just got to be patient. So we're going to talk about, what happens if your abstract got accepted. There's a few little subtle things that we just want to go over. Pre-work sessions, lunch sessions, both of which the associate member council have on. And we'll talk a little bit about how you guys are going to organize yourself and getting to the meeting, and then some of your first social media call. So hopefully some of you got some good news. I know a number of associate members got presentations on for the WST. So you should have gotten, if you got an oral or a quick shot, you should have gotten the notification already. I think posters either went out late last week or are coming out this coming week. They're usually a little bit behind. So what if you got an oral presentation accepted? You should have gotten a notification already. So one of the things that's a little bit confusing is that you actually have to submit your manuscript two ways. So your manuscript should be sent to the Journal of Trauma and the abstract scoring system. So the same place where you submitted your abstract, you have to submit it to both of those by Monday, August 10th. And every year somebody confuses the two. So getting into the Journal of Trauma, that's so we can start the peer review process, and because we like to have all of the WST papers published in the Journal of Trauma, like in the January and February issue after the meeting. So we want to get those in ahead of time on Monday, August 10th, so we can start the peer review process. You also have to send your manuscript into the abstract system that same day. That's to send your manuscript to your invited discussant so that they now have time to read your manuscript, prepare the questions for you, and have it done well before the meeting. And that benefits you a couple ways. Most invited discussants will usually let you know what they're going to ask you. So if they have time to read the manuscript and formulate their questions. A lot of times I'll send them to you ahead of time so you can prepare for the questions. So again, you got to do both, and just make sure you keep on track of that. And you do have to submit your manuscript if you have a full podium presentation. Now, what about quick shots? There's 25 or 26 quick shots on the program. It is mandatory that you upload your manuscript to the scoring system so it can go to your invited discussant, but it's not mandatory that you submit it to the Journal of Trauma. But we really do encourage you to do that. I think the acceptance rate on the quick shots to the Journal of Trauma is about 50-50. So it's a decent shot that'll get published in the Journal of Trauma. So we would encourage you to submit it to the Journal of Trauma. But like I say, it is mandatory that you send it into the abstract system so your invited discussant can see your paper and your presentation. Again, we highly encourage you. It's about 50-50 on getting into the Journal of Trauma. Of those that don't get into the Journal of Trauma, a lot of times it has to do with sort of subject and content matter. Some sort of maybe prevention articles or stuff like that aren't quite up the mainstream of what the Journal of Trauma is looking like. But almost all of those papers would be excellent candidates for Trauma Surgery and Acute Care Open, our journal that we started like 2 years ago. And so, it's a great option. So, I think between one of those two options, the vast majority of quick shots are probably going to get published if you put a little effort into it and keep going. So that's oral presentations and quick shots. The other major category, which several of you should be in, are posters. Again, you do not have to upload that to either system, and since there's no invited discussant, you don't have to put it into the abstract system, and you don't have to submit it to the Journal of Trauma. But same thing. I mean, we encourage you to send these in. Sometimes there's no due date on these, so sometimes some of the posters. It's always tough when you're grading an abstract. There's some of the posters actually some of the better papers, but they don't necessarily maybe translate well as an abstract. And so based on the feedback you get at the meeting, most of these things probably should be submitted to one of our two journals. Sometimes you get great feedback at the meeting and can tell you how to make your paper better, how to improve the data analysis or the presentation. And so, sometimes after the meeting, you can go home and really modify your paper. But I would encourage you, there's about 140 posters. I would strongly encourage all of you, to start working on the manuscript for those. Because when you think about it, when you've made your poster, whether it's a physical poster or an electronic poster, you've done probably half to 2/3 of the work needed to write a manuscript, right? Think about the poster. You've got your data, you've got your method, you've got your data, you've probably got a brief introduction and a brief discussion, but you already have your references. So the results sections, the method section is written already. The results section is written already. Your references are done. You have a draft of an introduction and a draft of a discussion. You need to flesh those out, and you've got a manuscript done. And so I think it's just, you have to maximize your work effort, right? So you go to all this effort to write the abstract, get a poster, present it at the meeting. You have to turn that into a manuscript. And again, I think out of those 140 of them, probably 100 of them, I bet easily could get published in one of our journals with some work and a little bit of guidance and revision. So get working on them, because it's going to come up a lot faster than you think. Me personally, I work best on a schedule. So, if your paper's due August 10th, I just, try and block out an hour or two every week on your schedule to to work on the manuscript and start getting it done. You guys did get approved for a pre-session. Again, this will be on Tuesday, September 8th, and it'll be in the afternoon. Again, this is all, we're working on the assumption that we're going to be meeting at least partly in person. The next step is to really line up your speakers and make sure that they're on board. Either way, if they can either attend or a commitment to participate virtually if they can't. And so make sure you've got your full set of speakers. My general advice is however many speakers you think you should have, it's probably N-1. Or if you're budgeted everybody to talk for 20 minutes, tell them it's 15, because almost everybody goes over. So just make sure you're either trim your speakers down a little bit and try and make it as tight as you can, or like I say, just flat out lie to them and tell them you want 15 minutes from them, but budget them for 20. The paperwork for that is due on the 11th, and I don't know about the self-assessment forms. It's a little bit of work. I don't, you can decide whether or not you want to do that. Self-assessment CME is becoming less of an issue, but I do think the CME application, the disclosure forms, all the paperwork will need to be into the office by the 11th. But they'll be pretty good about reminding you if you don't get it in, but try to get it all in ahead of time so they got time to look at it and we can make modifications. If anybody has questions along the way, I'll keep an eye on the little chat box over here, or we can go over them at the end. But if you have questions, go ahead and type them in the chat box now, and we can do them either as we go or do them at the end. Again, if you're offering self-assessment CME, my advice would be don't, because then you got to write a bunch of questions, and it's 4 questions for every hour, and one of them has to be case-based, so it's a lot of work. And the board requirements and the like for self-assessment CME have been ratcheted down, so it's less of an issue. And I think for the residents, it's not an issue at all. So I don't know if that self-assessment CME is worth the amount of work it would take for you guys to do that. But you should offer CME for some of the faculty that will be there, and so make sure you fill those out. Everybody's got to do a disclosure thing. Get used to it. This is just a fact of life now. And then a grant of license, which just allows them to use your content. And then you also have a lunch session as well, and there'll be similar documents. My other advice would be think about the content you're generating for both these things, the pre-session and the lunch session. You're going to have a series of speakers that are going to put together a talk, and the same thing, it's just like a poster. By the time you've organized a discussion or a talk, and you put 3 or 4 of those together in an hour, how could you turn that lunch session or your pre-work session into something useful? And you could take 3 or 4 presentations from your panelists, put them together, and put together a manuscript that might be appropriate for one of our journals, or it could be appropriate for something like the Journal of Surgical Education. It's one of the tricks you have to learn is you want to maximize the output you get from all your work. So again, if you're putting together this pre-session or a lunch session, think about how you could turn all that work and content that you're generating into a manuscript. Again, whether it's for one of our journals or a different one. The lunch session that got selected was how to be productive and build your academic career. And actually, one of our people, Joe Forrester, is going to be helping organize this. I think his co-moderator is Dr. Beck from UCSF, if I remember correctly. And this is going to be on Wednesday at one of the lunch sessions. Same thing, contact your speakers, get them lined up, make sure they're committed to doing it, whether it's in person or virtually. And make sure you've got all your paperwork done. Same thing, the target audience for this is mostly going to be fellows and residents. I don't know that self-assessment CME is going to be a big necessity, so it might be a lot of work for maybe a few people. So, but you do have to do the other CME applications and disclosure forms. I will, for all of you that are either going to the meeting or attending virtually, this I think is going to be a stellar session. Joe has been especially productive and has some. I've heard him give this talk and his own thoughts about how he managed to be productive as a resident and a fellow, and it's really he's got an excellent model that he uses. And they've put together a really nice panel. Dr. Bulger and a few others are going to be involved in this. So it's really both some early, mid, and late career people that have different perspectives. So I think this will be a combination of the pre-session and this lunch session. There's really going to be some stellar content for our associate members. Same thing. Think about the CME questions. I just think it's probably a lot of work for maybe at most 3 or 4 or 5 people that might need them. Let's see. All right, so that's it for the annual meeting. Does anybody have any burning questions? Like I say, you can type them in the chat function. The biggest thing is keep your eye out for any paperwork or requirements sent from the office and just get them back on time. All right. Don't see any questions. Anybody got anything that's unclear about the annual meeting? And again, if things change, if we're going to virtual or hybrid, the office will be communicating with everybody, and we'll have pretty clear guidelines on how to get it all set up. All right, so that's kind of the only thing we had to cover for the annual meeting. The next thing we want to talk about today a little bit is how we're going to help you guys get organized.
Dr. Spain, this is Jamaica. I'm sorry to interrupt. We do have a question. It says, do we need a question for each speaker?
Well, I mean, for the self-assessment CME, it's supposed to be 4 questions for every hour of content. So if you want to do that, if you have 4 speakers, you can ask each one to write you a question. The moderators could get the content together and write 4 questions themselves. But like I say, my advice would be I would not offer self-assessment CME for either one of these sessions. I just think it's, again, the majority of people that are going to be coming in here are going to be residents and fellows who don't need CME, maybe a handful of faculty, but you can still offer CME. It just won't be the self-assessment CME. But again, the American Board of Surgery sort of cut the self-assessment requirements in half last year. So, I just think getting those questions done might be a lot of work, but, you could ask your speakers to each write, if you have 4 speakers per hour, ask each one to write a question and see what happens. All right. Any other questions? All right. Okay. So, all right. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about your council. So, remember, our goal is eventually to have the associate members as sort of a semi-autonomous group, or at least parts of you will be autonomous and self-governing, and we'd like to get this up and running. So the role is to provide a forum for our new members to get involved in the AAST, to have a voice, and to provide some educational and scholarship opportunities to you as a class of membership. And so the goal is to actually, like I say, as I told you, to give you meaningful involvement. If we just create this new class of members and you stick it on your CV and we don't, give you work to do and give you meaningful ways to engage in the organization, then I personally would count that as a failure. So we really want our associate members to be actively engaged and contributing to the organization. So we want to get you involved, and hopefully that's just a clear path to full membership in the AAST as your career progresses. So so the question is, how do you start the first one? And our initial thought was basically, any associate member can apply for any position. I mean, this is, we're going to start this out as a wide open forum and try to make it as egalitarian as we can. But we're just going to kind of throw it open and let people sort of self-select. So the council, basically we're going to have 4 officers. So there'll be a chair, a vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. And I'm assuming, although I didn't 100% verify, maybe Bree or Jamika can let me know, but I'm assuming that it will be a planned transition from vice chair to chair, and then a secretary and a treasurer. Because the goal is, that
no, there won't be.
What?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go back. What were you saying?
Here, I'll go back to the slide. There won't be a secondary vice chair.
No, but is the vice chair automatically ascend to the chair the next year, or is it going to be
No, so they don't automatically ascend to chair the next year. We are still going to have elections for each position the following year. It's kind of like the vice president for the board, but the council can decide at a later date if they wanted to change that or anything.
Okay, all right, so that'll be your decision. And then there'll be 3 counselors on the board, so a total of 7 positions. And these will sort of mirror what the board of managers are doing. So the education, scholarship development, and communications, and social media. So each one of the counselors at large, you'll have specific areas that that you'll be involved in, oversee what the rest of the council are doing. And as you set up other committees, then they will sort of report up through these 3 counselors under these 3 domains of education, scholarship development, and then communications and social media. So we're gonna, and then there'll be some 4 committee chairs, so education, e-learning, scholarship, awards and development, communications, and social media. And so so what's that? 7, 11 positions. So any member in good standing can nominate themselves or be nominated. And so what we'll probably do is send out some notification over the summer. There'll be a call for nominations or self-nominations. We'll have probably ask you to write a paragraph or 2 about why you want to, take on such a role and what you're going to contribute and qualifications. He'll probably have some web seminar and have people maybe give a little quick presentation or at least for the officers about who they are and what they want to do and why they're pursuing this opportunity. And then there'll be a vote by email. And then my guess is you might have, say, for chair, we might have 6 or 8 people that put their name up for or are nominated for the chair. We'll have a first round of votes, and maybe the top 2 vote getters will then have a little session, and then have a second round of voting until we elect each of these officers and counselor positions. So that should happen over the summer with the plans that we'll be able to announce all of that at the annual meeting in September. So we'll be able to announce that slate of officers and committee chairs. Some of this we're gonna have to think about timing and duration of terms, and you know, so we stagger them so that you're not like having the whole council turnover, you know, every 2 or 3 years where you have to elect all new people. So, but that's all stuff, again, as we get up and running, that you'll be able to decide afterwards, like how you want this, how you want them to stagger out, so that you're not turning over the whole council at once. So the first social media call for the associate group is going to take place Wednesday, May 6th, so 5 o'clock Central Time. And this has been sent out, I guess, a doodle poll amongst all of you. And so, so Bria, do you want to talk about this one?
Yes, so I've spoken with Dr. Zarzar, and the communications committee is in the process of determining exactly what the associates are going to be responsible for outside of just their own social media team. So he'll be delegating those assignments on the first communication call, and I'll relay those to the social media committee. Everyone on the social media team is invited to the communications call. We'll be sending out a doodle poll for that this week for us to select the time of that committee call.
All right.
But what we're going to be focusing on for that first call is, of course, the name of the account, different content suggestions and creations, and how we're going to create those. Responsibilities during the annual meeting with live tweeting. We have visual abstracts that are submitted with each abstract that we're going to need to coordinate, and we'd love for associate members to also give commentary on those. And then there are a few assignments throughout the year in connection with the communications committee that we're going to be discussing, proposing, and coming up with. So.
All right. All right. All right. Anything else on that, Bria?
Nope, I think that's all for social media for now.
All right. Yeah, I think this will be a big opportunity for, you know, some of you to get involved and contribute. I've already seen a fair number of you on social media already on Twitter, and so this is a opportunity to really, you know, help the organization, especially during the meeting. You know, get our content out there and reach people that can't come to the meeting. All right. So there are a number of scholarships to attend the annual meeting. It varies, usually somewhere around 20 to 25. Those are due June 1st, and it basically pays pretty much for everything but airfare. So you get 4 nights at the hotel, free registration, and some food allowance. So pretty much the only thing you got to cover is airfare. And so those have been sent out. It's open to medical students, residents, and in-training fellows. And obviously, or if we have, or when we have the in-person meeting in Hawaii, they'll want you to arrive probably, you know, either Monday evening or Tuesday morning if you can get there, and stay till for the whole meeting through Saturday. You know, this is a great opportunity to make it to the meeting with really minimal expense other than airfare. So, and like, you know, for us, this works out great. So if one of our residents gets the scholarship, you know, we just tell them if there's another resident of the same gender attending the meeting, like they got to share a room, so it cuts down on expenses, and so we can get another resident there for basically registration and airfare. So it's actually a great deal. You know, I think as any of you associate members who want to attend the meeting, you should apply for this. All right. So key thing is for those of you who are running the lunch session and the pre-session is make sure you get in contact with your speakers, get a commitment from them to participate, whether it's going to be in person or virtually. And again, start to think about, you know, what you're going to do with that content, because you're going to put together either a 4-hour session for the pre-session or at least an hour-long session for lunch. And there's incredible insights in some of those talks. And how could you take that content and turn it into something useful? And it may be something, maybe it's a peer-reviewed publication, or maybe it's something that we can put on the AST website in the associate, in the associate member area on the website for future reference, as resource and content for members who come along later. So start thinking about how to capture all of this incredible content that you guys are going to be generating, and how to capture that and preserve it. So if you are, again, presenting a podium presentation, either a full presentation or a quick shot, if you're doing a full 10-minute presentation, you have to submit the article to the Journal of Trauma by August 10th, and you have to upload your manuscript to the abstract website so your invited discussant can see it. If you got a quick shot, we encourage you to submit it to the Journal of Trauma or TSACO, but you do have to upload it to the abstract system by August 10th so your invited discussant can read it. And then same thing for the posters. I encourage you to work really hard and try and turn those into full manuscripts. Volunteer, look back. Volunteers. There are some volunteers. I just learned a new trick. One of the things that just kills us at the annual meeting is when people get up at the microphone to discuss a paper, and you ask them to identify themselves, and they're like, and then you're like, can you repeat that? And then, you still never know who they are. So one of the tricks I learned is somebody actually plants people in the audience to sit by the microphone where they can read the badge, and then they text the name to the recorder. So we may take some volunteers to sit close to the microphones and keep an eye out on some of the badges for us, and text the recorders the names of people. And there are all sorts of other things that we need help with, throughout the meeting. And so, so there'll be those opportunities. And hopefully all of you volunteered for committees and got assigned committees. If it didn't happen, it's still not too late. Just let us know. So you can send an email to either Bria or me, or, and let us know if you're, haven't been notified, or if you're not on a committee. There's still work to do. There's still lots that has to be done. If you're on a committee and it doesn't seem like you're getting allowed or opportunity to participate from the committee, let us know. This is a new venture, right? And so it's a completely new thing. So we don't have all the kinks worked out. So if there are little problems or bumps in the road or something that just doesn't quite add up, let Bria or me know, so we can work through it. Because again, it's not going to be perfect out of the gate, but we really do want to keep everybody involved. And then, like I say, finally, apply for the scholarship meeting if you're either if you're on the program or not. If you're not on the program, it's even a better opportunity. Most of us, two of my residents got abstracts on. They're going regardless. We might use a scholarship to help somebody else who wouldn't normally come to the meeting. So even if you're not on the program, if you want to attend, please apply for the scholarship. Me personally, I when I was looking at these, I tended to favor people who otherwise wouldn't make it to the program. So if residents on the program already, at some level, the program, their institution's committed to bringing them to the meeting. So I tended to try to spread it out a little bit. Okay, let's see. Bria wrote me a note, so we have a few questions. So go ahead, Bria.
Hi. So we have a few questions about the Associate Member Council. AST is still finalizing a couple of things and getting a few last minute things approved by the board, but I can answer a few of them right now. Dr. Spain, I'm gonna go back to the first slide and take back control. So
all right.
The first question is, can you talk about the role of a counselor versus a committee chair? So the counselors will be different terms. So for example, the education counselor, their first term for the 2020 is going to be 1 year, and then it'll transition to being 3 years. For the scholarship and development, it's going to start off for 2 years and then 3 years, and then for communications, it's going to be 3 years revolving. The document that has a little bit more detail about these is going to be uploaded to the associate webpage, and we're also going to be sending that out following this call. But the main difference is the counselors, their responsibility is going to be a little bit more logistics based and a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Executive leadership based, whereas the committee chairs are mostly going to be working with the general associate membership on individual moving parts, if that helps. They'll also be working, for example, with the other education committees, with the other committees that are in for the AST fellows. If you give me 1 second, I'm going to unmute Sharon, who has a couple more notes. 1 second. Okay, Sharon, you should be unmuted.
Okay. Thank you. So the big difference between the counselors and the committee chairs is the counselors make up the board, so it's a board of 7. The 4 officers, the 3 counselors. The committee chairs report up through the counselors in the different sections. But the counselors have a definite role, and Bria was right there, it's more executive. So we have a board of 7, 4 committee chairs, and then all of the committee volunteers.
And over time, that the number of committees is probably going to expand. So each counselor might have, 2 or 3 committees that report up through them. And their job is also this counselors will be to sort of communicate with each other in the board. So, one of the problems sometimes with committees is they tend to get a little siloed. And so, if each of the counselors has areas that they're working, have a committee working with them, then the education counselor may say, wait a minute, I just heard from the social media counselor that they have a group over there that's working on something similar, and then they can facilitate sort of cross communication in collaboration.
Thank you. Another question, will there be chairs or counselors for research, or will that fall under scholarship? Right now, we do not have a specific chair or counselor focused on research. We do encourage all associate members to join the MIT committee, which is the main research committee that AST has. We will be, like Dr. Spain said, later adding more committees, and that might be, the one that we add going forward.
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, the structure isn't going to be perfect out of the box here. So, maybe it is going to be the education and research counselor. So, even the roles of these counselors may evolve over time depending on the the focus of the council. But yeah, that's a great question, and probably my first thought would be to maybe tag that to the make it education and research. But yeah, we definitely need to have an avenue for that.
And then our next question is, did we discuss an associate member meeting date during the AST annual meeting? So there are a couple opportunities for associate members to meet. We don't have a associate member reception just yet. We do have a new member breakfast that is taking place on Tuesday morning. And that's not just associates, but that's also AST fellows, contributing scientists, honorary members, and things like that. For the scholarship winners, they will have a reception on Tuesday night, and that is another opportunity. We do have a associate member meeting scheduled right now. We're still trying to flesh out if that is just going to be the council or if that is going to be the general membership. But we are working on some additional ways for you guys to network and connect.
Yeah, and same thing in Hawaii, the Thursday afternoon at the meeting is wide open, so it could be some time for some informal stuff as well. Also,
I misspoke. Sorry, the new member breakfast is Saturday morning, not Tuesday.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
So yeah, and then like I say, definitely, if we have a virtual component, there's more. We actually would have more flexibility in the meeting. So yeah, it's
Dr.
a little.
Can I just make a comment? This is Sharon again. Thank you. So this year is a little unusual because we're going to do all the elections prior to the annual meeting, just so we can go into the annual meeting with a full council, since this is new. In future years, the associate member council will have an actual business meeting at the annual meeting, and they'll elect their officers at that meeting. So I think once we get the second class of membership, the second year, then we will have the elections, and at that time they can decide when they want to have a meeting at the annual meeting. How many people are going to be there, what's going to be the best time, the best day, and that. So that's why we didn't have, we don't have it set in stone yet, but there will be some type of get together or meeting at the annual meeting. But starting in 2021, the associate members will always have their annual business meeting, and it will probably be before the start of the annual meeting, so they can elect new officers and they can be announced at the annual meeting.
All right. Very good. Yeah, like I say, this is a learning venture for us as well. We don't have all the, all of this set in stone or figured out. And I think, having our sort of first meeting in Hawaii makes it a little bit tricky, because even under the best of circumstances, that traveling to Hawaii adds another layer of complexity. So, but we'll, hopefully by 2021 in Atlanta, we'll have our cadence and our stride going.
So that's all for the questions that were submitted through GoToMeetings. If anyone has any additional questions, just raise your hand. Jermika is going to be going through and unmuting people individually. Let me see. Or you can put them in the question field if you're in a noisy environment.
All right. How do you raise your hand on this one, Bria?
So you can't raise your hand because you're a panelist, but there is a button with a little hand that should be in a little side menu of your GoToWebinar control panel if you're on your computer.
Yeah, I know Zoom has that for sure. But, all right. All right. Any
So it
questions?
doesn't look like we have any right now. I did get an email about pre-sessions and lunch sessions that were not picked. So yeah, all pre-session and lunch sessions, I believe, have been set. Rachel is going to be contacting each of the organizers for follow-up, because we do normally take lunch sessions and pre-sessions that might not have been selected for the meeting, and we do make them into grand rounds or different educational courses. So if you have not gotten an email from Rachel notifying you that your lunch session has been selected, she and Dr. Riley are talking right now on the next step for those.
Yeah, it's tough because you get 3 or 4 great submissions sessions, and you have space for 1 or maybe 2, and which is the same on the regular meeting. We had you can take 12 and you get 20 or 22 great suggestions, and it's just sort of limited time and space at the annual meeting. But again, some of the grand rounds are a great idea, and same thing, we can start thinking about having a associate member webinars like this on a regular basis with, again, same thing, the educational needs at these stages of your career are very different than people in out in practice. And so some of the ideas that you guys submitted for lunch sessions would be great for associate member webinars or associate member grand rounds, which we can start doing. I mean, everybody's getting good at this, so at these online meetings. So I think the opportunity to take some of those ideas and turn them into other venues to help educate and help your fellow associate members is a great idea. All right.
I think that was it for questions. These slides will be available after the call in the associate member members only section of the website. We'll also be sending out a follow-up email with slides, video, and additional paperwork and some more information on the associate member council. I don't see anybody's hand raised or any more questions, and I don't see anything in my email, so I'm going to assume we're good to go. So,
Well, yeah, just final, like, again, for all of you who are, working in hot spots and taking care of COVID patients, I mean, God bless you. Like, the Bay Area has been like a little bubble here, and we really have had great effects of the shelter in place here. So we're not seeing the volume and the work that people on the East Coast and Midwest are seeing. So for those of you who are doing the work, keep it up. We're super proud of all of you, and I know the patients and their families are going to be eternally grateful for everything you've done. So keep going, keep going. All right, Bria, Jamika, Sharon, thank you. And we'll probably have one more session. Is that correct?
yes, the next session is gonna focus on the associate member council elections and also presenting nominees.
And those of you start thinking about, like, those of you who are interested in positions and committee chairs or membership, start thinking about, why and what you'd like to do, and start thinking about maybe putting together a paragraph or two about why you want to run for a particular position, or if you have a friend you think would be great for it. We'll take nominations and self-nominations. All right, everybody. Well, thanks a lot, and take care, and hopefully we'll see you on the next webinar. Thanks.